Hey everyone, it's Jeannie for Not Too Shabby, and I am back with another card featuring L'Enfant's More the Merrier. A couple weeks ago, or a week ago, I shared a first card featuring this background with a bunch of the smaller images and a little scene that was placed right above a sentiment. Today I'm coming back with a different way to use your card. I decided for this card I would do a bit of masking, and I wanted to plan it out. So I had placed all my stamps in my MISTI on my card panel and kind of laid it out so there's one animal on each side of the campfire. The tricky part of this one is that I want them to be holding this stick, and it is a one-layer card, so I do have to do a bit of masking. For the owl himself, the stick doesn't really matter because he'll be holding it, and it won't need any overlapping except for protecting the stick. And once I do that, I stamp and mask everything because we'll also be doing some ink blending. For the fox holding the s'more stick, it's a little bit more difficult because his hand is going to be on top of it. And how I do this is I ink up that s'more stick and kind of use a baby wipe to wipe off part of the s'more. And we'll go in with a Copic-friendly marker to add in any missing lines. And once I have the fox all lined up, I will go ahead and mask off that s'more stick, stamp the fox, and then I, for some reason, cut out the s'more stick mask and I put the fox mask over it. Not really sure why I did it, kind of like a little brain fart with my crafting, but yeah, so I use my MISTI just to help me line up my post-it tape because that will be the divider between the sky and the ground. So I'm going to go in to create my ink blended scene. I am using Nina Solar Crest 80-pound cardstock, which isn't the easiest to blend on, but I do find that the colors are the most vibrant. I have used Bristol Smooth and it blends like a dream. It's super easy to do. I will still blend on that type of cardstock, but I have kind of noticed that the colors just aren't as vibrant, and I don't really like that. So I tend to use Nina Solar Crest even though it's a little bit harder to blend on. So I'm going to go in and you'll see that my blending isn't great, and I think the trick with blending is that you have to go in multiple times just to make everything even. Because I have a campfire in my scene, I add yellow to the middle where the campfire is. Later on I'll actually pull in an orange as well to really make that campfire seem like it is shining bright. It just looks really good. So once I add that orange, I actually kind of blended too heavy right on top, and so you'll see that little chunk that the black soot is kind of catching on, and it looks kind of weird, but in the end it'll be fine because we'll cover it up with little white dots, which are the stars in the sky. It all works out. I think that you just have to keep going with the blending and hope that it turns out, and if it doesn't, then you just add water or you add splatter somehow and everything will look fine. That's my story and I'm sticking with it. So yeah, you see that I go in and blend out multiple times with the same different colors, just getting it to blend as evenly as possible. I didn't cut out any of the blending, I just sped it up. And yes, of course, it took a bit of time, but in the end, the result was awesome. And I really liked adding that chipped sapphire right around the edges of the black soot. Once I was done with the inking on the top portion, I removed the post-it masking tape and covered up the top half so I could add the ground. So I just went in with the brown, nothing super fancy. I kind of am doing it the same way. I am not covering up the entire bottom of the card either because a sentiment will go down there. I just wanted to add a bit of color to the bottom because I didn't want to have to go in with my Copic markers to color that up. Plus, it's way easier to blend to white using inks versus Copic marker. Yeah, there's that. Once I finish inking everything up, I remove the mask and I will go in with my Copic markers. You'll see that my masking isn't perfect. I don't know what happened, probably how I cut it, but you'll see that there's some white spaces between the lines, and that's really easy to fix. Just go in with a Copic marker that is close to the color and color it in like you had inked up that area. It's not a big deal at all. You'll see with the fox though that his arm looks funky, and that's because I did some of the masking. So I just go in with a Copic friendly marker to draw in the lines for the s'more stick and his hand, and it looks as good as if I stamped and masked properly. So sometimes with my masking, it's super simple and I overcomplicate it, and I don't know why. but I think that this was a pretty easy scene to mask. And of course, if you don't want to, you can always cut out the images, use the coordinating dyes, and add them on top of each other. I just usually don't like that white outline that dyes create. I have been using dyes a lot more often than I normally do, but I still really like one layered masked scenes specifically for that because it doesn't have those white outlines. So for the coloring, I'm not doing anything super special. I am using Copic markers per usual, going in with about 2 to 3 colors per area depending on how big the area is. And I color up this little owl in gray, which I don't know, in hindsight, I think I should have just done some fun colors, but I have a tendency to stick with the normal colors that animals are. So I have a hard time coloring, an owl teal or purple. So I just went with the colors I know, and I stuck with gray because I knew that the fox would be brownish reddish, so I didn't want to use brown for the owl. I wanted a bit of contrast between the two animals. But I think that the scene is super cute. I had mentioned previously that I love s'mores, and this is a set that just is so adorable. I will be creating more. Like, I really miss doing scene cards. Recently, I've been doing a lot of holiday and Christmas cards, and I think I have reached the point where I am kind of over it. I'm going to move on to, I guess, Valentine's Day cards because that's like the next holiday that's coming up. Hopefully it'll be interesting to see what the next year will bring. I am trying to think ahead and trying to plan out what I want to do with my YouTube channel and all the videos that I am creating, but for now I'm going to stick with the scene cards that I know. So you'll notice with some of my coloring that I left a bit of yellow, and it's mainly on the edges of their faces. So both the owl, which is a little harder to see because of that light gray, it kind of blends in with the light yellow. But on the fox, you can clearly see that there is a yellow highlight on him. And the yellow highlight is just basically allowing the campfire to look like it's bouncing back on them, especially because I have yellow ink blended around that campfire. It kind of looked like they're both glowing from the campfire. So you either can incorporate it in your coloring, or you can go in after you color it and just add little lines of yellow. I believe I used Y02 to do that. It works so well. It's a trick that I picked up along the way. I don't really remember where I had learned it from, but it just makes the campfire look more realistic. So I'm going to go in and color the campfire, and it'll really tie everything together, and it really looks like the owl and the fox is glowing. I think the fox looks more like he's glowing. It's kind of hard to tell and see the yellow on the owl, but you always can go in with more. But I already messed with it enough, and I thought that that was sufficient. So for my background, because of that blended area, I kind of wanted to go in and add dots for stars, and I really think that this pulls it together. Anytime you have blending that isn't perfect, which happens pretty often if you don't go in multiple times, you can cover it up with splatter. Splatter makes everything all right. And I actually go in with 2 different sizes of my white pens just to add those dots and create those stars, and I really think that it pulls it together for that nighttime scene. I just add as many dots as I want, and sometimes the difference of the size of pens really helps because it looks like there's big stars and small stars, and of course you can do splatters too, but I just wanted to avoid it. It was just easier to go in with a pen and just put dots wherever I wanted. I lined up my sentiment, and I'm going to be heat embossing it on black cardstock. I prepped the area with an anti-static powder tool, per usual, stamped with Versamark ink, which is a sticky ink that will not dry right away, and it will hold onto the embossing powder. So I will take that sentiment and dunk it into my tub of white embossing powder and go ahead and heat set that. And I have a sentiment that is perfect for this particular card. I really like the Lawn Fawn sentiments in their stamp sets because you can always mix and match and create a cute sentiment for any occasion. Here it says, "Everything is more fun with you," and I thought it was perfect because the fox and the owl are hanging out together, so obviously they are having more fun. I went ahead and added it to the cardstock, and I decided to mat it on black. and it does kind of hang over, so I just trim off that right side and my card is done. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time with another one. Bye!